Hello again, and welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and we're going to continue our mini series entitled It Takes a Village. Now, if this is your first time watching one of these videos, that's great because you don't have to watch them in any particular order to get value out of it. But at the end of the video, somewhere over here in the cards, there will be a link that you can watch the series in its entirety, and I would highly encourage that. But the purpose of this mini series is that during an SHTF situation, there's going to be a various amount of tasks that need done, and those tasks need to have people that do them, and you need to have the correct people doing those tasks, meaning that they need to possess a certain skill set. And so we want to talk about some of the roles that people will need during SHTF and the responsibilities that go along with it. And so in today, we are going to cover food and water production. Now, food and water is very, very important, right? I mean, without them, I mean, no other group's really going to live that long without food and water. So I think this one deserves a little bit of time that we can go through and discuss this. Now, let's go ahead and just start off this video the same as we're going to do with all the other ones with a definition. And basically, this is somebody that has the ability to not only produce it over and over, but to also have the skill set to preserve what you already have. So I think it's important, as you know, food and water is for most, that they kind of take this for granted. Um, they will say that they've already got it covered, or yeah, I admit I've got a few holes, but it'll be easy to get those overcome and straightened out and done. And this is where I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. Okay, so the average family, depending on who you want to listen to, what poll you want to read, and things like that, probably has somewhere in a neighborhood of a week's worth of food, give or take. Some will have more, some will have less, but in this kind of instance, if you kind of average it all out, I personally believe that they have, somewhere in a week's worth of food. Meaning that if a long-term SHTF event happened, then the clock starts kind of ticking pretty quick, and people are going to run out of food and water and other supplies pretty fast. So to kind of dive into this, the person slash people in this group are going to have to be some pretty hard workers. Okay, I mean, when we were talking about producing or preserving food and water, it's not a fast thing, and it's not particularly easy in some of these instances. Okay, if you really look at it from kind of an overview, this can be a pretty stressful job. Okay, sometimes you do absolutely everything right and you still fail. Think about you trying to go out and garden. You went out and you've gardened for the last 5+ years, whatever. You've produced a pretty good amount, but then something happens out of your control that you just don't get the crop that you wanted at harvest time. It happens. And so to have everybody kind of depend on you to be able to produce that food and water, preserve what you already have, there's a lot of aspects that go into it. A lot of it you can control, some of it you can't. You can go through and collect a ton of water, filter it, boil it, do all the different things that you need to make it to where it's drinkable. But the big tote that you have suddenly springs a leak overnight that nobody noticed. All that hard work is gone. And then now, the person that's in charge of food and water is going to be sent into a panic because you can't live very long without water. And so, in this kind of a group, failure equates to death for everybody, and pretty quickly. Again, you're not surviving very long without water, and even food for that matter. So when we're talking about food, okay, we're talking about things like farming or growing, gardening, things like that. But we're also talking about livestock, hunting and fishing, as well as foraging and gathering. Basically, anything that you can do food related. So, pretty much anything that's going to be dealing with food. it's probably going to have the responsibility dealt to that kind of person. Now, it's not to say that others can't contribute to this and help out when the time kind of warrants, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of this still is going to fall back on that person or that group. Now, I've seen in a lot of groups that they delegate things like cooking and whatnot to this category, and that's fine. Again, it's going to depend on the amount of people, how big your group is, how much food you can grow and forage and hunt. A lot of times they'll even put on food because they are preserving it. They'll even put on the responsibility of food inventory, make sure that things are being rotated, make sure that the rationing and the portions and things like that kind of lands on them too. So it can be a very very big job, and a lot of times it's bigger than just kind of what one person can do. But let's just switch over here and let's talk about water. Now, this can be a tough one because if you look at it, you can't just plant a water seed, right? You can't raise a seed from birth. You kind of have to either have a source, or collect it from rain or whatnot. And so as a group, now is the time to kind of look how are you going to deal with your water. Water is big, it's heavy, it's bulky. You need quite a bit of it for a long time. And keep in mind, even if you're a small group, let's say that you have five and you want to do the minimum of 1 gallon per person per day, and we're talking long term. So even if we're talking, uh, just a week, so that's 7 days times five people times, you're starting to talk about hundreds of gallons of water and hundreds of pounds of weight and things like that. The further you go out into this, and so if we're talking even a 3 month SHTF situation, it's almost becoming impossible to store that amount of water, right? And so to be able to locate a large body of water or to even create your own, to dig some sort of pond or a well or something like that. The point of adding water to this category is that it's important and somebody needs to be in charge of it. Now, someone is going to have to be able to not only store water and make it safe to drink, but you also have to remember there's a difference between clean water and drinkable water. And I see this a lot as well. Don't spend a ton of time and resources making every single drop of water drinkable, because there is a ton of things that you're going to need clean water for that you would rather not have to put out your drinking water for those purposes. So you need to make sure that you have clean water and you have drinking water. Now, things like flushing a toilet or things along those lines, it doesn't even have to necessarily be clean water. So make sure that you understand what type of water is required for what thing. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let me give you a few final thoughts to this. So food and water is extremely important. Okay, this category alone is very very important. Without this category, any of the other ones does not really matter. You can't have good leadership. You can't have good security. You can't have basically anybody if everybody's hungry and thirsty, right? So you can have pretty much anybody participate in this group one way or another. You're still going to want someone, or at the very minimum, someone, but maybe even just a few people in charge of all this because of the level of importance. But even children, the elderly, somebody with disabilities, they can still help out. Take the task of picking berries from a bush. It's easy, it's simple. Pretty much anybody can do it. Even if somebody's in a wheelchair or somebody's 3 years old or 103, if they are able enough to be able to go out to a bush and have a basket sit on the ground, then they're picking berries. Now I will get the hate from that. Why are you wheeling 103-year-old grandma out there in the hot sun? Okay, yeah, you're going to have to be smart about it, but if it's a decent day outside, maybe there's some shade and things like that. Grandma could use some fresh air, right? A little bit of sunshine. Get out and see birds flying around and just being outside in general. It's good for everybody. And so to be able to have that person pick berries and things, they're participating value to the group where they are gathering food instead of having somebody else pulled from their task to pick berries. Now you're having somebody be able to fulfill that role while somebody else is doing another important role. So, just a thing for your consideration on that. But when we're talking about food and water, it's time consuming. So make sure that as many people as you can comes in and joins into this kind of group activity. It's one of the things that, again, many hands make light work. So you can get things done faster, a lot of times easier. And it's one of the ones that every single person needs to eat, every single person needs to drink. And so when everybody is participating in that, then it's one of the ones to where kind of everybody feels equal, everybody's pulling their own weight and things along those nature. So hopefully that gives you a few things to think about. Hopefully you got some value and some substance out of this video. We're going to continue on with this mini series. We've already put out a couple of videos, and so we'll see where everything goes. Now, if there's a topic that I have missed that you think that needs to be in here, leave it down in the comments below, and I'll look it over and maybe we'll do a video about it, right? Because there is a bunch of different roles and things that's pretty important. And I didn't do a complete list. I can't do everything, right? So but that's what I've got for you today. So if you've made it this far in the video, guess what? You rock. I appreciate you so much for spending a little bit of your time with me. And I hope you have an amazing day and a blessed day. I want you to stay tuned because there's definitely more information to come. And with that, I want to remind you to please remember, remain united because we're all prepping in this together.